Have you ever wondered, why does an empty vessel make the loudest sound? And why is the weakest man often the one who screams the loudest? In a chaotic world, we scramble to conquer nations, yet we tremble and fail miserably before the shadow in our own mirror. This video offers no hacks for instant success. Instead, we embark on a journey through the four gates of the Stoic sage: the authority of silence, the conquest of the ego, the true measure of power, and the profound realization of life and death. If you are ready to shatter the shell of cowardice and seek absolute freedom for your soul, then welcome to the torch of wisdom. Wise men speak because they have something to say. Fools because they have to say something. An empty vessel makes the loudest sound, so they that have the least wit are the greatest babblers. In Stoicism, we believe that speech is a direct reflection of internal order. When you observe a person speaking ceaselessly, fearing intervals of silence, it is a sign of a chaotic mind. They dread silence because within that silence they are compelled to confront their own emptiness. Fools speak because they have to say something. This have to is not an external mandate, but the compulsion of a fragile ego seeking validation. They employ speech as a shield to conceal their internal deficit. Just as the saying goes, an empty vessel makes the loudest sound. The louder the noise, the lesser the substance. This is a painful yet necessary admonition for our modern society, where the clamor of social media, frivolous arguments, and the need to perform are overwhelming the capacity for contemplation. Conversely, the wise speak only when they have something to say. What does this signify? It means their words have passed through the filter of reason logos. They speak to convey truth, to construct, or to defend righteousness, not merely to fill the void. If you feel insignificant, do not attempt to scream for attention. Turn inward. Transform your mind into a solid vessel, brimming with knowledge and experience. Then every word you utter will carry the weight of 1,000 pounds. Learn to love stillness. Before opening your mouth, ask yourself, is what I am about to say true? Is it necessary? And is it kind? If not, silence is the most eloquent answer. True power lies not in volume, but in meaning. Ignorance, the root and stem of all evil. Opinion is the medium between knowledge and ignorance. Knowledge without justice ought to be called cunning rather than wisdom. Seeker of life's meaning, understand this. No one voluntarily chooses to be evil. According to Socrates and the Stoics, people commit evil acts because of ignorance regarding what is truly good. The greedy man believes wealth is the summum bonum, highest good, so he steals. The tyrant believes power is supreme, so he slaughters. All stem from a false perception of value. Thus, ignorance is the root of all evil. We live in an era of information explosion, yet a scarcity of wisdom. We confuse opinion doxa with knowledge episteme. Opinion changes with emotions and the crowd. It is precarious and lies halfway between knowing and not knowing. Knowledge, however, is the comprehension of essence. It is immutable truth. Do not let your life be steered by the opinions of others or by the fleeting emotions within yourself. However, possessing knowledge alone is insufficient. Plato warns us of a dark intellect. Knowledge without justice is cunning. An intelligent man lacking morality is more dangerous than a fool. The journey of self-development. If you only hone skills but neglect to cultivate virtue, you are creating a monster within yourself. Sharp intelligence must be reined in by conscience. Do not fear not knowing, fear only the refusal to learn. Regard ignorance as a temporary ailment of the soul, and knowledge as the only cure. Each day strive to replace a subjective opinion with an objective truth. Do not learn merely to earn money, learn to be human. Sharpen your intellect, but let a benevolent heart guide that blade. That is how you become a warrior of light, not a deceiver of darkness. Education is teaching our children to desire the right things. Do not train a child to learn by force or harshness. If a man neglects education, he walks lame to the end of his life. This is the core of ancient educational philosophy. Education is not the cramming of data into an empty head. Education is the reorientation of desires. Why does Plato say education is teaching children to desire the right things? Because humans act based on desire. If you teach a child supreme mathematical skills, but they desire to dominate others, they will use mathematics to create weapons of destruction. True education is making the soul love the beautiful, revere the good, and honor the true. When desires are right, actions will naturally be right. And this process cannot be achieved through violence or harshness. Do not train a child to learn by force. The human mind is like a sapling. It reaches toward the light, joy, curiosity, not toward the whip. Learning must be the joy of discovery, a voluntary act of reason. The most haunting quote in this group is, "If a man neglects education, he walks lame to the end of his life." The image of walking lame is a painful metaphor. A person lacking education in the sense of moral and intellectual cultivation may remain wealthy and physically healthy, but their soul is crippled. They walk through life making wrong decisions, stumbling over base desires, and never reaching the wholeness of human existence. You may be an adult, no longer a child, but in Stoicism, self-education is a lifelong task. Never think it is too late to correct the gait of your soul. If you feel your life is lame, fluctuating between joy and sadness, enthusiasm and despair, that is a sign you must return to learning. Relearn to love simple things. Relearn to master yourself. Educate yourself with gentleness, not self-torment. Find joy in understanding one new thing each day. You are the sculptor and you are also the marble block. Carve a masterpiece. A good decision is based on knowledge and not on numbers. Here we touch upon the pinnacle of intellectual fortitude. In both the ancient and modern worlds, the numbers, the mob always possess overwhelming power. Peer pressure, social trends, all seek to drag you into the current. But a sage, a follower of Stoicism, understands that truth is not a democratic election. If 1 million people speak a falsehood, it remains false. If one person speaks the truth, it remains the truth. This quote is a declaration of war against cowardly compromise. To live a meaningful life, you must often stand alone. You will have to make decisions that the crowd deems insane, but your reason knows to be correct. That is the price of maturity. Do not fear solitude when you swim upstream. The eagle always flies alone. Only sparrows fly in clamorous flocks. When you make decisions based on profound knowledge, you stand on the foundation of reality. But if you chase after numbers, you are building castles on sand. Have the courage to trust your intellect, provided that intellect has been forged through discipline and ceaseless learning. My companions, we have just passed through the first gate, the gate of wisdom. We have seen that silence holds power, ignorance is the source of suffering, education is the molding of desire, and truth does not belong to the majority. This is but the beginning. Wisdom without character and action remains mere empty theory. In the next part of this grand essay, we shall enter the true battle, the battle to conquer oneself, to cultivate courage, and to confront power. O friend, the external world extols those who conquer new lands and those who build billion-dollar empires. Yet in the eyes of Stoic philosophers, all such things are mere ash if one fails to govern the kingdom within one's own breast. The first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself. To be conquered by yourself is of all things most shameful and vile. There are two things a person should never be angry at: what they can help and what they cannot. This is the heart of Stoicism. Look into the mirror. The one looking back at you is the greatest, most dangerous, and most cunning adversary you will ever encounter. Why does Plato call being defeated by oneself most vile? Because when you lose to an external enemy, you can blame their superior strength or their weaponry. But when you succumb to your own sloth, anger, or appetites, you have no one to blame. You are both the victim and the perpetrator. This is the tragedy of voluntary servitude. Conquering yourself does not mean self-torment. It means allowing reason to rule as king, governing emotion and desire. when you wish to indulge in sleep, but reason commands, arise and work, and you arise, that is a victory. When you wish to utter acrimonious words, but reason commands, be silent, and you remain silent, that is a monumental victory. To achieve this, you must comprehend the golden rule in the following statement: the dichotomy of control. Why do we feel anger? Because we desire the world to obey our will, yet it does not. If a matter is changeable, such as your bad habits, anger is futile. Use that energy to change it. If a matter is unchangeable, such as the weather, the past, or the opinions of others, anger is madness. You are striking at the void and injuring your own hand. Do not seek external battles to prove your masculine prowess or human strength. Conquer your drowsiness first. Conquer your procrastination this afternoon. Each day sees a small victory over the fragile ego. Do not let emotions turn you into a puppet. You are the emperor of your soul. Do not leave the throne vacant for the usurping forces of emotion to occupy. Excellence is not a gift, but a skill that takes practice. We achieve excellence by acting rightly. Character is simply habit long continued. The beginning is the most important part of the work. We often look at great men and genius artists and lament they were born excellent. Plato and Aristotle would laugh at such a notion. Engrave this upon your heart. Excellence is not a single grand act. It is thousands of small, correct actions repeated over and over. No one becomes virtuous or talented overnight. An honest person is one who has chosen to speak the truth thousands of times, even when lying was more profitable. A resilient person is one who has chosen to stand up thousands of times after falling. Character is simply habit, long continued. This statement strips away all romanticization of fate. You are not born a lazy person or a diligent person. You practice becoming lazy by repeating the act of lying idle, or you practice becoming disciplined. We are what we repeat. And in that process of training, the beginning is the most important part. Why is the beginning the most important? Because it shatters the inertia of stagnation. The first step out of bed, the first page of a book, the first stroke of a pen, that is the moment you declare war on the gravity of mediocrity. If you feel you are inferior, cease your self-reproach. Begin to rebuild the musculature of your character. Do not dream of changing the world just yet. Start by cleaning your room every morning. Repeat that correct action until it becomes instinct. Do not wait for inspiration to work. Acting rightly will lead to the feeling of excellence, not the other way around. Begin right now, for tomorrow is the abode of failures. The greatest wealth is to live content with little. Better a little which is well done than a great deal imperfectly. Courage is knowing what not to fear. In a society frenzied by materialism, the teaching the greatest wealth is to live content with little rings out like a clear bell. The Stoic does not oppose money, but opposes slavery to money. The truly rich man is not the one who has the most, but the one who needs the least. When you know contentment can deprive you of your happiness, you become invulnerable to the fluctuations of the market or fortune. Littleness applies to action as well. Better a little which is well done. This is the elitism of focus. Do not attempt to do everything. A cluttered life is a shallow life. Choose one thing, one path, one mission, and execute it with absolute perfection. But to live differently like this, you need courage. Plato defines courage uniquely. Knowing what not to fear. And typically we fear poverty, death, or ridicule. But the sage says, do not fear those things. They are natural laws or external opinions. What should you fear? The loss of dignity, cowardice, living a meaningless life, and allowing your soul to be stained by evil. When you know you should not fear death or poverty, you become free. That is the courage of knowledge. Simplify your life. Cut away superfluous desires, toxic relationships, and useless tasks. Focus on the few, but of quality, and bravely face the greatest human fear, the fear of not being accepted by others. Remember, the lion never loses sleep over the opinions of sheep. Good actions give strength to ourselves and inspire good actions in others. Never discourage anyone who continually makes progress, no matter how slow. Finally, in this section, we speak of the relationship between self and others. Stoicism is often misunderstood as cold, but in truth it is overflowing with love for humanity. Philanthropia. When you perform a good deed, who is the first beneficiary? It is you. Good actions give strength to ourselves. When you help someone, you are affirming your strength, abundance, and dignity. You feel you have value. Kindness is fuel for the soul. And apply that kindness to both yourself and others on the journey of development. Never discourage anyone, no matter how slow. This is the greatest consolation for those struggling to rise. Progress is progress, no matter how small. The snail climbing Mount Fuji sees the same scenery as the eagle flying there. Do not despise the small steps of others, and more importantly, do not despise your own slow progress. My friend, we have traversed the realm of discipline and virtue. We have learned that the greatest enemy lies in the mirror, that habit creates destiny, that wealth lies in contentment, and that courage comes from understanding. You need not become a great man by tomorrow. You need only conquer yourself today, even if just a little. You need only maintain good habits, even if just one small action. Do not be discouraged by a slow pace, as long as you do not stop. You can only progress from small initial steps. Does a child not fall many times before walking proficiently? Be like those children learning to walk. They stumble when taking their first steps. Then they immediately stand up and practice the next steps, and so on, until they walk proficiently. Failure or lack of success is merely like a child practicing those initial steps. Stand up and walk on. We must proceed regardless of whether the path ahead is rugged or smooth. We must walk, and keep walking. Your legs are now more steadfast. But where will those legs take you? How will you conduct yourself when you hold power in your hands? How will you keep yourself pure when society is rife with machinations? The measure of a man is what he does with power. Power in itself is neither good nor evil. In Stoic philosophy, it is an indifferent thing. It is merely an amplifier. Give power to a petty man, and he will transform into a tyrant. He uses it for petty revenge, to plunder, and to satisfy his lusts. Give power to a noble man, and he will transform it into an instrument of benevolence. He uses it to shelter the weak, to establish order, and to uphold justice. Therefore, Plato speaks truly. Power is a measure. When a man holds nothing in his hands, he may appear very humble and gentle, but that may simply be the humility of the weak. Only when he holds the power of life and death, the power to bestow favors, does his true nature, the nature, reveal itself. If you are aspiring for promotion, wealth, or leadership, ask yourself, why do I desire it? If you desire power to be feared by others, or to compensate for internal insecurity, you will become a calamity to yourself and others. Build a steadfast character before building an empire. Let power be the means for you to exercise kindness on a larger scale, not a destination to stroke the ego. He who is not a good servant will not be a good master. This is the great paradox of leadership. To stand above 10,000, one must know how to bow before 10,000. Why can he who knows not how to serve never be a good master? Because he lacks empathy. If a general has never been a soldier, enduring cold and hunger at the frontier, how can he understand the suffering of his troops, to feel compassion? If a boss has never been an oppressed employee, how can he know how to value the labor of his subordinates? In Stoic philosophy, we call this the experience of roles. Life is a stage, and to direct the grand play well, you must have acted in the supporting roles. Service trains, humility, the core virtue that prevents the ego from swelling and swallowing wisdom when in power. Do not despise the small, menial tasks you are performing. Do not complain when you must brew coffee, sweep the floor, or run errands. That is the training ground for future great masters. Learn to obey before commanding. Learn to bow your head before holding it high. A leader who rises from the mud will have legs far steadier than one born in silk. The penalty good men pay for indifference to public affairs is to be ruled an evil men. This is the sternest rebuke for the passive good. Many gentle people choose a life of seclusion, avoiding conflict, politics, or social issues because they deem them filthy or complicated. But Plato and the Stoic philosophers, who upheld the spirit of cosmopolitanism, declare that is not nobility, that is irresponsibility. If those with intellect and conscience remain silent and retreat, who will fill that power vacuum? The greedy, the ignorant, and the cruel. And when such men hold power, the good will be the first victims. The silence of the good is more terrifying than the roar of the evil. Public affairs. Here is not merely national politics. It is the affairs within your family, your company, your neighborhood. If you see wrong and turn away, because it is not my business, you are aiding the ascent of evil. Stop hiding in your shell of safety. Have the courage to step into the light. Fight for righteousness in your workplace. Speak up to protect the weak. Participate in building the community. Do not let this world be shaped by the worst of men, simply because the good men like you are too busy with their own false peace. Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a harder battle. People are like dirt. They can either nourish you or they can stunt your growth. These two statements seem contradictory, but they are actually two sides of the same coin: compassion and wisdom. The statement, everyone is fighting a harder battle, is the pinnacle of empathy. You see a person who is grumpy, unpleasant, or even malicious, your instinct is to hate them. But the philosopher says, pause. Perhaps they have just lost a loved one. Perhaps they are enduring the pain of illness. Perhaps they are burdened by crushing debt. We do not see each other's invisible wounds. Therefore, kindness is the only rational choice. Be kind not because they deserve it, but because it is the nature of a noble man. Sometimes forgiveness is the better path toward peace in your mind, freeing your mind from the burdens of intolerance that seem to exist in every human being. True, only God possesses infinite altruism and forgiveness. Stoicism also aims toward the path of the divine, using forgiveness to liberate one's own mind for oneself. That is the pinnacle of life's wisdom. However, kindness does not imply stupidity. It does not mean you allow just anyone to walk into the garden of your soul. People are like dirt. This is a ruthless but realistic metaphor. There are people who are alluvial soil. Being near them, you learn positivity and wisdom. You grow strong like an oak tree. There are people who are acidic soil, toxic soil. Being near them, you are drained of energy by complaints, envy, and toxic thinking. You will wither. The Stoic teaches love all spiritually but select your companions carefully socially. Seneca once said, "Retire into yourself as much as possible, associate with those who will make you a better man, and welcome those whom you yourself can improve." My friend, we have learned that power is a brutal test of character. We know that to be a general, one must know how to be a soldier. We understand that indifference to public affairs is suicide. And we have learned to balance a hot heart kindness toward others' pain with a cool head, distancing from toxic influences. But human life does not stop at social interactions. Deep within us lie metaphysical questions. What is love? What is music? And finally, what is death? Should we fear the end or regard it as liberation? At the touch of love, everyone becomes a poet. Music is a moral law. It gives soul to the universe, wings to the mind, flight to the imagination, and charm and gaiety to life and to everything. The Stoics are often misunderstood as arid souls who reject emotion. How erroneous. We do not reject emotion, we sublimate it. Plato speaks truly. Love and music are the only two forces capable of lifting human beings above the mundane earth. Why does everyone become a poet when in love? Because love fractures the rigid shell of the selfish ego. It compels us to perceive the divine beauty in another human being. It awakens the creative capacity that has been slumbering. Love. Eros in ancient philosophy is not merely romantic affection between man and woman, but the aspiration to reach toward the beautiful and the perfect. And music, music is not mere entertainment. Plato calls it a moral law. Do you find this strange? Why is sound moral? Because music is order, it is harmony. A great piece of music exists when notes obey laws, do not compete, and do not stray from the rhythm. The universe also operates like a grand symphony, musica universalis. When your soul vibrates in unison with music, you are tuning your frequency to match the heartbeat of the universe. It heals the fissures within the psyche, granting wings to the mind. Do not permit your life to consist solely of numerals, reports, and the anxieties of subsistence. Nurture your soul with the beautiful. Love someone deeply. Immerse yourself in a symphony or a folk song. Do not deem it a waste of time. That is when you are refueling the soul. A barren soul cannot contain great wisdom. Let art soften your heart so that you may perceive this life more radiantly, thinking the talking of the soul with itself. Human behavior flows from three main sources: desire, emotion, and knowledge. Do you ever fear solitude? Many people do. They turn on the television, scroll through phones, and seek crowds merely to escape silence. Why? Because they fear confronting the roommate within their own heads. Plato defines it beautifully. Thinking is the talking of the soul with itself. If your mind is rife with criticism, negativity, and anxiety, then that conversation is a torture. You are living with a toxic companion right inside your head. The task of philosophy is to transform that internal monologue into a dialogue that is peaceful, constructive, and full of compassion. And to master this conversation, you must understand your own structure. The human being is a chariot of 3 horses. 1. Desire, the wild black horse, craving material things and pleasure. 2. Emotion, the strong white horse containing anger but also filled with courage. 3. Knowledge reason, the charioteer holding the reins. Tragedy occurs when the charioteer falls asleep, allowing the 2 horses to drag the chariot into the abyss. But sublimation occurs when the charioteer uses knowledge to guide emotion and restrain desire, driving the chariot up to Mount Olympus. Dedicate time each day to converse with the soul, inquire of it. How do you feel today? Why are you sad? What are you craving? Listen to it as you would listen to a kindred spirit. Do not judge. Use knowledge to soothe emotion. Transform your mind into a peaceful sanctuary to which you always wish to return, not a prison from which you wish to escape. We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. This is one of humanity's most profound statements, evoking Plato's allegory of the cave. Children fear the dark because they know nothing. That is an innocence worthy of forgiveness. But what does it mean for adults to fear the light? It is the fear of truth. We fear the light of the truth that we were wrong. We fear the light exposing the vices we attempt to conceal. We fear facing the reality that our lives are at an impasse and require change. We would rather dwell in the darkness of sweet deception of safe illusions than step out into the glaring but painful light of truth. That is the tragedy. For only light allows us to see the path. Living in darkness, however comfortable, remains a blind existence. O brave friend, dare to open your eyes and look directly at the sun. The truth may pain you at first like eyes dazzled when first leaving the cave, but afterwards it will liberate you. The truth shall set you free. Have the courage to admit your weaknesses. Have the courage to acknowledge broken relationships. Have the courage to accept naked reality. Only when standing in the light will the darkness within you vanish. Death is not the worst that can happen to men. We conclude this journey with the final destination of every human life, death. Most people regard death as an enemy, the most terrifying ending. But to a Stoic philosopher, death is a component of nature. It is as natural as leaves falling to the roots, as the sun setting behind the mountains. If death is not the worst thing, then what is worse, Plato and Socrates answer, it is living a life that is meaningless, vile, and devoid of dignity. To live while letting the soul rot, to live as a slave to evil, to live while bowing explicitly before injustice, that is the true death, the death that occurs while one is still breathing. This statement does not advocate seeking death, but champions a heroic attitude toward living. When you no longer fear death, no one can intimidate you. You become absolutely free. You will dare to live true to your conscience for the highest price. Losing one's life no longer makes you tremble. Live each day as if it were your last. Memento mori. Not to live recklessly, but to live fully. Love more fervently, forgive more quickly, and work more devotedly. Do not save good things for someday, for that day may never come. Let death be your counselor, reminding you of the value of every breath. My friend, we have traveled together from the elementary lessons on speech, through the rigorous training of character to the burden of power, and finally ascended to the sky of the soul and eternity. The quotes I wish to share with you above are not merely lifeless words on paper. They are seeds. I have helped you sow them into the soil, watering them with the reflections of Stoicism. But for them to germinate into great trees, providing shade for your life, you yourself must be the one to tend them every day. This life is full of volatility. Step out there and transform your life into a masterpiece, not for the world to see, but so that when the velvet curtain falls, you can smile and say to yourself, I have lived a worthy life. Warm regards, and determined to prevail. My dear companions, the words of Socrates, Plato, or the Stoic sages are not merely lifeless words on a page. They are seeds of fire. But whether that flame erupts into wisdom or fades into oblivion depends entirely on you. You are the sculptor, and this life is the marble block. Do not wait for someday, for tomorrow is the abode of failures. Live a radiant life so that when death visits, it will not find a trembling slave, but a free soul who has fully completed their mission. If this torch of wisdom has sparked something in your mind today, please leave a like and share it with those who are lost. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel so we may continue to forge our character in the journeys ahead. Warm regards and determined to prevail.